to sit to try and make this as comfortable and informal as possible. When you stand, I feel like I'm back in a classroom and lecturing, and I don't want to do that. But thank you for having me. Adam asked me a while back. First, I ought to tell you a little bit about my background so you have a feel for it. I am a UNC undergrad, so I'm sorry for all of you that don't quite fit that one, but we are national champions, so have to suck it up and realize that. When I got out of UNC, I ended up being in the world of consulting for 13 years with one of the major consulting firms in consumer products. And then in the 1990s, I know I'm that old, in the 1990s, I had my entrepreneurial career. I loved the spacious, great job to sit in my basement and write a business plan, kind of like where you are here, but quite frankly, my basement wasn't nearly as nice as this place. But it turned out to be hugely successful. We did 4 rounds, raised $40 million, several VCs, private equity, and so on. Sold it in '97. And had the wherewithal to kind of decide what I wanted to do next. Worked in a family business for a little while, ran that for a little while, and then I got lucky and got an offer from an old professor of mine at UNC to come down here and teach with him. It's a rare opportunity that you get a legendary teacher asking you to team teach with him, but I took advantage of it. Moved here in 2002. And started teaching over at UNC Entrepreneurship. I became a full-time professor, not tenure track, but full-time in 2002. So I've been over there doing that for quite a while. There's 1 or 2 of you that were in my class, and you will, a couple of you that are in my class, you may remember my rule about cell phones, which is if your cell phone goes off in class, you have to answer it in class. So you might want to look at your cell phone in case it goes off, because I'll probably call on you. It's very kind of one person is hugely embarrassing, everybody else is laughing at him. But around that time period, I decided to, instead of going back into the middle of the field, to become an investor in early stage companies. And to take you back to 2002, it was really a wasteland here of capital available. There was 2 angel funds that both cratered. We had a couple of venture capital firms, a couple of whom have sort of are still no longer in existence. But around 2010, the world of angel investing changed quite a bit. That's when Triangle Angel Partners came into existence. I assume all of you, how many of you know about Triangle Angel Partners and what they are? Okay, so not many. I'll tell you a little bit about them. RTP Capital is another one of our angel groups here. I joined both of those, and I invested in Idea Fund Partners, which is one of our venture capital firms, and Bull City, which is right back here behind us. So I started investing in those. Interesting enough, I also decided to invest in an angel fund in Seattle, Washington, because they're one of the best in the country, and they took remote members. So I've been in that side, and then I've invested in individual deals as well. And so all that was kind of a lead up to this last summer when we started what is called the Carolina Angel Network. How many of you know about these university-led angel groups? One's called the Duke Angel Network and one's called the Wolfpack Investment Network for state? No? Okay. So I'll tell you a little bit about those. But I gave up most of my teaching to go do that. And by the way, I'm going to talk, but throw your hands up as I go if you got questions and I'm not explaining exactly how they work. But I think it's great today to look at the resources that all of you as entrepreneurs have in front of you for early stage investing. Not only do you have RTP and TAF, co-founders Ventures is David Gardner's one, Investor Circle. There are even some new venture capital firms. I don't know if any of you heard, there's a new one that just announced, I think, in the last week, which is it's called Service Provider Ventures. It's a combination of Atlanta and the Triangle. So there's a lot of capital now available, including the 3 that I'm about to talk about. So I think your funding options are way greater, at least at the beginning of the cycle. We can talk a little bit about what happens after you get to the A round of funding and how do you go from there, because we don't have a lot of big, deep venture capital pockets here. But that usually means getting on a plane, and we can talk about that. And I hope that's what you want me to talk about, because I said I was going to talk about sources of capital. So I'll kind of give you an overview first of the 3 university ones, and then we want to talk about angel investment groups and how you get in and so on. But please just throw your hands up, otherwise I'm going to call on somebody like I do in my classes. So Carolina Angel Group, as well as Duke and State, are basically UNC or Duke or State alumni who are accredited investors, which means they either have $200,000 in income or $1 million in net worth. So they're relatively wealthy people, and it is people who are also interested in entrepreneurship. And in each school, we've been teaching entrepreneurship for a while, and we have some successful entrepreneurs out there. So it's a member-driven organization. We go out and recruit these alumni to be a part of this group, and I'll explain kind of the difference in what they do. But that's on the one side of the equation, is the members bringing money and advice. On the other side are entities that have a connection to UNC, Duke, or State. And many of you in this room probably have a connection one way or the other. Connection means you're either an alumni or somebody that's on your board went to Duke or has a connection to Duke in some way, shape, or form. So if you meet that criteria, you're in the ballpark of being considered for funding and advice from any of those 3. We are just completing, interesting enough, the 3 groups work together. You wouldn't believe a collaboration between those 3 schools, but we all like each other. We are about to complete and announce our first 3-way deal in which there were all 3 schools on the management team, and we did our due diligence together, and we're investing together. So that's exciting. And so if you have people on your team that are part of 2 schools, not 3 or whatever, you qualify for both, and we'll work together with you on what could be an opportunity for us to invest and provide member benefits. So in the world of angel investing, there are 2 types of organizations. Triangle Angel Partners is a fund. That means that people that join the Triangle Angel Partner Network put in $25,000, $50,000, $100,000, and the group votes on what deals they're going to do. It's not my ideal way of doing it, because I could end up in a deal that I don't like, or they could turn down a deal that I do like. And so the opposite, or the other alternative, is what's called a member-driven organization. That's what RTP Capital is, that's what my one in Seattle is, and that's what all 3 of our university ones are. That means the members pay a small fee and they make their own decisions to invest. So when we go out and look at a deal, the members get to decide, I like this one, I'm going to put some money in it, but only a small percentage of those actually get done. So any questions so far? Because I'm going to tell you a little of the history of what we've done so far as the 3 groups. Anybody? Yeah, I'll take this one over here.
Yeah, but member-driven, that's like Triangle Angel Partners, where you have, let's say, 15 people and 10 people say I'm in, and 10 can invest and 5 don't have to. The other, what was the other one called, where the group decides?
It's a fund. It's a fund. They're angel funds, and then they're member-driven organizations. Yeah, those are the 2 models that angel groups have. In the back.
Maybe while you're speaking, you could address the length of the due diligence process typically.
Sure. Let me deal with that one, and then I'll come back and tell you a few stories of where we are. So yeah, the due diligence process in our groups, from start to finish, depending of course on what you've got in the way of a business plan and documents and so on, is about 30 days for the 3 groups. John Gushik, who runs the Duke one, he bet me that I couldn't beat 32 days, which was his record, and we did on our first one. But I'll kind of describe the process this way, and we all kind of work the same way. You submit an application, if you're interested, through our websites. We use Procedure as our software platform. Triangle Angel Partners use GUST, G-U-S-T, and Procedure is used by RTP Capital. Those are the 2 platforms. And all you have to do, even if you go to our website, which is CarolinaAngelNetwork.com, you'll see for entrepreneurs, and you can apply there. And it asks you to fill out some information. Same way with guests and so on and so forth. Once you apply, then you're going to hear from our director or someone, and they're going to say, okay, here's our checklist of, besides your business plan, these are the things we'd like to have you see. Pull that together. Let's say that takes you a couple of days to get that together. Then we schedule you for a screening committee meeting. And our screening committee is 4 people in the triangle who are pretty well-known early-stage investors. You come and present as a founder. You don't really present. You come and meet with us, and we read the deck, and we're going to ask you questions for about half an hour, 45 minutes. If you pass that test, and they like it, then we put it in front of the members. And we send a little blurb, and we say, here's the latest deal. Are you interested? We, in our case, in CAN, we have 99 members. Trying to sign up my 100th member sitting right here, but haven't made it there. Duke has 105 members. State has 45 members. So when you put it out in front of them, then they come back and they say, we've got 24 people, like our first deal. 24 people said, I'm interested. Doesn't mean they're going to invest, just means they're interested. Then we do due diligence. That takes about 2 weeks. And we use the members who are interested. We have 4 MBAs and that kind of stuff to help us. And then you come to a member meeting, and the members either join online, because 30 of our 100 members are elsewhere in the country. So these are members all over the country. Duke's is about 85% are outside of North Carolina. State's is almost entirely in North Carolina so far. But so you go to the meeting, you, the founder, and there'll be some people in person and some people online, and they answer questions, and then they make their decision to invest. It's a long answer, but it's about 4 weeks. I know that the feedback on TAP and Triangle Angel Partners and RTP is that it takes a little bit longer, and that's partly because in both cases they have to rely on the members or the people that are part of the organization to do the due diligence, and many of these people have full-time jobs, and so scheduling 3 or 4 of them along with you is a real pain in the neck, and I've seen it take as long as 2 or 3 months. So you should allow a little bit longer time if you're going through those avenues. Does that answer your question for you? Okay. So just so you know results and what kind of things we've done, Duke was the first one that started this. They started 2 years ago. They have done 14 deals. The average deal for them is about $300,000. State started in September. They're on their 4th deal. And they're averaging about $150,000, although the most recent one was a little over $400,000 from their members. And then we started in January, and we did our first deal in March, which was only $100,000. We only had about 45 members. And we have 2 deals that are out right now for members to invest. And I don't know what that's going to be, but I know both of them are well over $100,000 so far. So that kind of gives you a range of what you could expect in the way of money. I probably should stop again and see if there are any questions, because I'm going to move to what is the criteria, what do we look for in deals, but any questions? Nope. Yes? No? Food's okay. So what do we look for in a deal? And it's a little bit, it's slightly different in each of the 3 Duke, State, UNC models. Not a lot different, but the biggest difference between the 3 of us is that at UNC we have a separate fund. It's called the Carolina Research Venture Fund that is for professors who have a molecule that need to turn it into a product to get it to the market. They need to find a real CEO to run the business. That's what we call a spin out, and we would call that very seed stage. We don't do that as Carolina Angel Network, but Duke and State would look at those and have looked at those. But other than that, once we get the product into place, let me start with IT startups. Most of you might be in that field. So we look for 3 things. We look for, do you have a product that works and actually does work? I mean, people can actually use it and have used it. Second, you've got to have a dedicated management team. You got to be, the CEO's got to be 100% on this, not doing something else, and so on and so forth. Importantly, the third one is the most important. You got to have customers. Doesn't mean you have to have paying customers. You can have beta customers, but typically we like to see you've had customers for 4 to 6 months, because we want to interview the customers and we want to see how the feedback is from those customers. It doesn't mean we always meet, you have to always meet those criteria, but we're a little bit farther along than what you would think of as seed stage, where you're still developing the product, and more toward we're about to launch into revenue. And so that's kind of our criteria for the three of us as we think about what we look at. In the life science world, we don't look at therapeutics. Drug discovery is a long, long process. We will look at med device. In fact, we have one that is in the process. The one I told you about, that's all three of us, is actually a med device. So we will look at med device, but again, they have to have the product, and it has to be in the 510K process to get there. But we will look at those. And then we will, down the road, look at diagnostics, which is sort of the middle category in life science, and we will look at those as we build. So questions on criteria and what we look for and so on and so forth?
Do you look at any hardware-based startups that are...
Hardware? Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely we would. You know, that we don't look at real estate. We probably don't look at nonprofit. In fact, I know we wouldn't look at nonprofit. We look at clean tech. We look at any consumer product. Mati's coming through right now, and we would do consumer products. There aren't many categories that we wouldn't do, but I would say real estate, unless you have some other ones that you can throw me in. Probably if you're studying a new bank, I'm not sure whether we go for that, but so that's the criteria. Yeah.
Yeah, did you mention small molecule drug discovery at all, and what you look for in that area?
Small molecules?
Yeah.
Well, that's the one we don't do. We don't do therapy. No, but we have, at UNC, we have a fund that does do that. A separate fund than one I'm talking about. It's called the Carolina Research Venture Fund. And they've done, it's actually run by Harris. You guys all know Harris. They're one of our venture capital guys. They run it for us, and they've done three deals, and they're all basically molecule. Well, one's a med software company, and I would say that I can't really speak for Duke or NC State on molecules. You would have to ask. John Gushik runs the Duke one, and Joe Sinsheimer runs the state one. But she's on the review. He was asked about who's on the review committee of looking at molecules. It's run by Mike. Ours is run by Mike Dowd, who's over there, and then Christy and Clay are the three people that review the technology. We did that because we knew we'd have to tell professors no, their molecule isn't any good, and so we had to have somebody on the outside that would tell them that. The people on the inside tell them it's not a great product. What else do you want to know about the three university ones? I think I've given you all that. Talk a little bit about angel groups and how they work. I thought I might also, since I have we might talk about NCID and the seed grant program a little bit. We have a couple of people. Where's Lauren? And yeah, there she is. And Tom Rue, who is our chief executive for NCID. How many of you know about the NCID grant program? Hopefully a lot of you. No, really not. Okay. So this program started, Tom, you can help me, but I think it started around 08, if I remember, something like that. As a starting point. Lauren, does that sound about right? 06, thank you. We give out between 10 and 12 $50,000 grants a year. And they're grants. They're not equity, they're not debt, they're grants. And they're for basically seed stage, where you're developing the product and or beginning to look at the market and develop the market. So they're kind of pre what I was just talking about with the three universities. You apply through the NCIDEA website. There are 2 rounds every year. It's a really good learning process. I actually, with a company that I helped start back in '07, I think, or something like that, I'm a recipient of that grant. And so I know we learned a lot by going through it. They put you through semifinals and finals, and they have people that review your submission. It's a really good process for getting feedback. I think you're allowed to apply twice, am I 3 times? You can apply 3 times, so you get turned down the first time, you get feedback, you get a chance to resubmit, and so for any of you that are thinking about starting a business, I strongly recommend that you try and get in that process. You win that grant, and it's a gold star that people around here at the next stage look at you and go, okay, if they made it through that process, there's something here that we ought to look at. So if you're looking for early money, that's one of the best sources. Those of you that are in life science, the Biotech Center has a grant program. They do about $250,000 in their first level grants. When you apply through the Biotech Center, that's another option that exists for grant money. Again, this is not equity, this is not debt, this is grant money.
This is a loan, the NC Biotech is a loan program, right?
They have a loan program, yes, and yeah, they have both actually in their program. That's NC IDEA. Any questions on NC IDEA and that process? I know that I would have hoped that more of you knew about it because it's been around for 10 years and it's been very successful. We've had a number, I've forgotten the numbers, but I know it's very high, the percentage of companies that are still in existence that have come through that. Do you remember what the number is, Lauren? 2/3 of the people that have gone through that program are still in existence. And if you know anything about success rates of startups, you know, it's like 1 in 3 survive 5 years. So the fact that 2/3 of them have survived is a really
And NC IDEA grant winners and Groundwork Lab companies combined have, since the inception of the program, gone on to raise $250 million.
right. So Groundwork Labs is another part of NC IDEA, and I think John came and talked to you. I don't know if any of you remember his, but you know we have a bunch of accelerators here in the Triangle, Raleigh HQ, Launch Chapel Hill, so on and so forth. What's Adam's one called? It's called the consumer one?
Stampede.
Stampede. So there's a lot of those that are feeders, but Groundwork Labs is a good feeder into the NC IDEA grant program. So you might think about that. They again take somewhere around 10 teams twice a year. So you might think about applying there to that program as well. You want me to talk about, any other questions on that part? You want me to talk about the angel groups? What do you want me to talk about? Come on. Back to back.
Do you have any suggestions for angel groups that focus on nonprofits?
Say again, I'm sorry.
For angel groups that do focus on
On nonprofits? Yeah, there's one that I think is, and I have to get you the name because I don't remember the name, but there's a part of the guy that, Meredith, help me with the guy that runs Investor Circle. Steve? Yeah. Steve Monty runs it, and he has a pardon? Solidarity Capital. Yeah, that's it. Sorry, I'm not coming up with a name. There's another one that's over in Chapel Hill, and I'll give you my card afterwards and I can connect when I go back and look at it. One of the other things you should think about too is, I'm absolutely shocked at this number. How many nonprofit foundations do you think there are within 10 miles of here? Anybody want to guess? 10? 5? How about 70 foundations that fund, you know, a social cause, basically, in this area? There's a great book, or It's not a book, it's online. It lists all the foundations. You can sort it by location, by what their specialty is, and so on and so forth. So if you have one particular cause that you're talking about, I would start looking through that directory and find some of those as a way to help you. Other questions? Back.
This is more of the academic in me. How many
Oh,
investors
academic.
do any of your groups do in minority businesses? Do you track those numbers?
How many do we do in minority?
Yeah.
Actually, we started doing that, haven't we? We tracked females and for the grant winners. Is that what you're talking about? You're talking about angel
What
groups?
about the angel networks? Yeah.
I just got back, by the way, kudos to Investor Circles. I was out in San Francisco for the Angel Capital Association, and there was a big call out for Investor Circle there. They had a session there on success and stories about minority businesses and so on. I didn't happen to attend that session because they have like 5 sessions going at the same time. But if you stop me later, I'll give you the contact, and I'm sure I can get you the video or contact of whatever was presented at that one. They tend to be a good organization to collect data and that kind of stuff, and that's the way I would try and find it if I were looking for that. There is a group here that's an angel group that does minorities, women, and veterans. That is out of South Carolina or somewhere down. It might be Fayetteville. I think they're Fayetteville. And that's the only group I know that kind of sort of specializes in a category like that. But I don't have, for the angel groups, I don't really have any, at least locally or national, data on that. So let me talk a little bit about angel, oh, sorry, in the back.
There is actually an organization that specifically focuses on vets, Bunker Labs. They're not,
That's it, Bunker Labs.
They're not an accelerator, but they are a network that has access to ready cash on demand.
Right.
It's more individual. It's certainly not a collective due diligence organization or anything like Grading to Stretch, but it does exist. It's just for vets.
Yeah, that's the one. It's called Bunker. Right. Okay. So, angel investing and what it's like and so on and so forth. And I've told you how to apply. What do we look for in our angel groups? It's kind of hard to contrast this, but because I'm in the one in Seattle, I think I told you, it's considered one of the top 2. I think they either won or they're number 2 in the country. 200 members. We average 600,000 per deal, member organization, and so on and so forth. Their criteria is that we're not betting on first timers. They only invest in people that have been there, done that, and are on their second, which is a tough criteria, but in Seattle and the West Coast, you can kind of do that. And whether you know it or not, the West Coast is a little different in some ways. If you tried and failed the first time, that's a badge of honor. That's actually a good thing. And interesting enough, they believe in that model. So, but that's not the case here in the Triangle, at least not with TAP or RTP or David's group, co-founders, or even the ones, PAN is over in Greensboro, Piedmont Angel Network, WIN down in Wilmington. They'll take we'll take first-time founders. You know, but I do think that for first-time founders, the key is who's on your board and advisory board. The stronger that group is, not just in people we know, but their background, the more we're going to take a chance on you. Because we think that adult supervision is really important for people that have been there and done that. So give a lot of thought to when you bring on a board member or an advisor. So as we think first about team is always, or the founder is always the first criteria in almost every investing group that I've been a part of, but that's the key. So I think the second thing is that you've got to convince us that what you have is defensible and protectable, and it isn't just that we're going to be the first in the market to do this. It doesn't mean you have to have a patent, it doesn't mean you have something, but having a secret sauce that you've taken time to develop helps a lot in terms of us thinking this is a good deal to think about. I think interesting enough, we don't worry too much about competition. You're probably surprised to hear that. Oh, you know, do you put much concern into we've got big competitors or small competitors, or we don't really care that much about it. We do care that you've researched it, but we don't really, that's not a very important criteria to us. Your ability to describe how you're going to get to the next milestone and phase with our money is really important to us. What you're going to do and what are your milestones to get there. And it isn't just about, well, I'm going to hire a developer, or I'm going to do, you know, I'm going to try and get the product to the version 2.0. It's milestones like we're going to get the first kind of customers trying it. And so our ability to think that you can actually get that done, not just the technology side, but get it into the market. Many of you might be technologists, and we'll start with you, but we want to know you know something about how to get into this market. How to sell, how to market if it's a B2C, so how to market if it's a B2B, how to sell. And we look at you as is this the right salesperson? Can you sell this product? Not can you develop the product, but can you sell it? So those are kind of the criteria. I'll stop there. Those are kind of the ones that I think we think about. I've been on the screening committee for a couple of times, and I think about those kind of factors. You want to ask any more about those? No? Everybody's running out of time? No, I guess I'm still got some time. So what's it like to have angel investors, and how do they help you, and so on and so forth? How should you think about them? Typically, what you know, the people that you pick for your advisors, and I said to you that was very critical if you're a first-time entrepreneur. You will pick up one or two, maybe three folks out of the angel group that have some ability to help you, whether it's introductions into a sales particular channel, or they know people that are looking for how to get good programmers, or these are typical angel group folks are 50-ish. In Triangle Angel Partners, most of them are entrepreneurs, have been successful entrepreneurs, or are currently entrepreneurs. So you're going to pick up some people that you can be helpful, and you should build off of that as you're going through the process of being selected or whatever, is to make sure that you kind of bring them into the loop. It's not a big problem to sort of live with an angel group. Almost all of them are ready to do the next round. So if you do your early stage, we call it an early stage round with them, and you're now going to start to look for venture capital, they're probably going to be there for you. And the better the name of the organization, the entity that invests in you, the better the first round people that invest in you, the better off you are. I was just across the street with somebody who's looking for money, and he has 4 advisors that are just top tier advisors. I wasn't crazy about the product, but I gotta tell you, the fact that he has those people, and one of them's an angel group here that is top tier, that really opens up a lot of doors. And our local VCs also pay attention to that too. So we have some VC firms here, and I'll talk about that in a second. But any other questions on the angel groups? Yeah.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, you mentioned having a strong advisory board and then in my case, your scientific advisors.
Mm.
So at our stage, we're still looking for the second seed stage round, and so I've concentrated on scientific advisory, but I haven't really started constructing the board. And what expectation, pre-money, are you supposed to build out, or is having a
Yeah, great great question. When you actually go out, because it's a legal entity, as you all know, that once you have a board member, we have liability as board members, and there's a whole set of requirements to be a board member. I think, and he was asking about scientific advisory boards, and for some of you, it could be a technology advisors and so on. I do think those are good, and typically an advisory board, you don't have to pay them much either in stock options or even have to pay them. But lending their names is going to give credibility to the product. But it doesn't give credibility to the market, to the ability to sell the product into the market, or to go out and get fundraising. So when I think about boards, or I took my board when I started my business, I wanted to find people that had expertise in building this kind of business. It might not have been it wasn't exactly in my business, but they had been through the cycle of building a business. That would be a good board member. Somebody that's really well connected. You'll find that there are either angel groups or VCs that particularly invest in your type of business, and finding somebody that knows them, has connections to them, is a great board member to introduce you to sources of capital. So you want to think about the sales and growth and building the business. Sometimes an industry expert's good. They're not quite as important, because we're going to do our own research on your industry, and we're going to know a fair amount. So I don't think they're as important as somebody that has sales and marketing experience or ramping experience in your industry, and then somebody that knows and has contact or has connections in your funding world. Does that help? Yeah, and I don't think, depending on where you are on the product, you could start with an advisory board, but again, we're going to look at the advisory board and say, how strong is that? You don't want to build a big board. I mean, really, literally, it's you and, if you're going to put together a real board, two more people is fine. Because as you do individual rounds of investing, those investors are going to join your board. And believe me, you don't want to get to more than 7 board members eventually. 7's probably the max that you ever want to get to. I had a board with 8 people, and I got to tell you a terrible story that when it came to selling the business, we went 4 and 4, and it was a disaster. I mean, friendships were coming apart quickly because of that. So always make sure you got an odd number. Where was I? Do you want me to talk about venture capital for a little bit, or any other subjects? Wearing you out?
Just a general question. Is there anything you would have changed or wanted to prevent in just pulling the network together, or even at the point you're at now?
You're talking about the Carolina Angel Network?
Right, yeah.
He was asking about kind of any mistakes or any things that I've learned along the way. It's been a great start. I mean, we've got 100 members, and we've only just started. We actually started recruiting members on November 1. We're going to eventually get to 200. I've learned that the more members in any angel organization, the better it is, because you have more expertise, you have more funding, you have more help. So as you're thinking about, talking to angel groups, both the TAP and RTP have about 50 or 60. So one of my big goals is to try and get more and more members so that we have more money and influence around the table. I think that one of the things that I did do early, and the members have kind of come back at me, the first 4 deals that we did that are in our fund or are doing are what I would call later stage. They're actually VC funded rounds who led us into that round and participate in their round. That's not the model that we're really looking for. Eventually we want to get to where we call early stage. You barely got some customers, you barely got a beta customer. These companies had anywhere from 2.5 to 10 million in revenue. But we did that intentionally because we wanted to have some success stories early. So we're going to take a chance, we're even going to take a chance on diagnostic, probably coming up in the fall, that probably will never ever see revenue. But they'll get sold before, because they have a test for determining sepsis in hospitals. Other lessons learned, it's a pretty efficient process. I think all 3 of us have really enjoyed what we're doing. I noticed when we were out in California for the angel thing, there's probably about 12 or 14 universities that have a program like this. It's not very well known. Notre Dame has one and some others, but it's not all that. What's great is to have 3 universities and be able to connect so we can compare notes and due diligence together. Other questions in the back?
Have you seen a quality deal flow drop because of Triangle Startup Factory closing? Or has
Did it drop because I didn't hear the last part?
because of Triangle Startup Factory closing, or is that not a
You know, it's interesting. My angel groups in the fall said they were starting to see fewer people apply, but all 3 of our angel groups, I mean, I've had 43 applicants since January 15. And I know John's had 200, Duke's had 200 in 2 years. So, but remember something, we look at deals not just here in North Carolina, we can look at them all over the country. I said 30 of my members are across the country, and they bring deals to us. John's group, Duke, has done 14 deals, 9 have been outside of North Carolina. So we have kind of a national visibility to deals, which may influence a little bit different. But I think it's picked up a bit in the spring in my local angel groups, so I don't see too much of a drop-off. I think all of you that want to get into an accelerator like Startup Factory was, we still got some great options for you. I mean, to get into Groundwork or Raleigh HQ or Stampede or whatever. So I hope that's not going to be an inhibition. I know Chris is doing something with Techstars, which could be very exciting if that comes to fruition for us.
Randy,
Yep.
what's the biggest mistake an entrepreneur could make when presenting to an angel group? What would you recommend they avoid doing if they make the first cut, they get invited in, and they just, oops, shouldn't have said that or done that?
Well, the most common one is, it's just, you know, they say, I don't have any competition, or my competition is X, Y, and Z, and somebody in the back raises their hand. Have you ever heard of this company up in Canada? You know, when we did Evo app, which was our first one in Triangle Angel Partners, I said to them, there is a company in DC that just got $25 million in venture capital money. You guys better look at it. And our due diligence team never looked at it. And Evo app went under in 9 months. So a mistake of not having done your research on competition is one mistake. Getting good advice on pre-money. You can have the best presentation. You walk in and say, well, we got the product ready to go and we have a $10 million pre-money. And it's like, that'll be a very short discussion after you leave the room, because that's just not realistic. So make sure you get a good lawyer or somebody. The other is, you know, it's no easy way to tell you this, but I'll give you the advice that somebody gave me once a long time ago. When you think about looking for money, make out your list and put them in order of, because it'll probably be the very best ones you're going to put at the top. When you start to go dialing for dollars, start at the bottom of the list. Don't start at the top, because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to get asked questions that you have no answer, and you're going to screw up. So don't come to TAP and RTP until you've practiced or done it with friends, family, whatever, so that you've got it polished. Because there's some unpolished ones. Yep.
How do you structure your deals at Carolina Angel, like price rounds?
Yeah, we don't do convertible notes, and Duke doesn't, and nor does State. We don't like convertible rounds because it's kind of it can be a bridge to nowhere, and when you live through that, it's really an awful experience. We call it a pier, you know, instead of a bridge, and so we don't do them. And I tell people, you know, I understand it's easier, and I understand that, you know, the one I was telling you about across the street that I just saw this morning, he's doing a convertible note. And I said, look, you got great advisors. You can get a price round. They'll help you tell you what is the right pre-money. And it's not that hard legally to know what goes in it if you've got good advisors. So price it, and I'll be there with you, but I'm not going to touch it if it's a convertible. Now, in many cases, they'll say, well, I got half the money, and blah, blah, blah. I'll say, fine, when you get to the price round, I'd love to talk to you. We're not, I mean, TAP and RTP will do convertible notes. We don't like them, but we'll do them. But, yeah, we don't do them. And we all agreed we didn't want to do them. Any others? Want me to talk for just a second about venture capital? Okay. I think I told you, I did tell you there's a new one coming, right? It's called Service Providers Ventures or something like that. I'm meeting with them. But we have we have, I think, 6 or 7 here in the Triangle. I don't know if you know that, but most of you know Bull City and Idea Fund. They're in the technology world. Most of you know Hatteras and Pappas. They're in the life science world. But believe it or not, we have 3 that are corporate venture funds. Rex Health is one. Mosaic, which is, well, it used to be called Mosaic, it has another name now. It's part of Blue Cross Blue Shield. And Intel is here. Those are the ones that I know of. And then the guys in Atlanta come up here. Nora Mosley is one down there. And have done deals up here. So if you think about those guys, those are. And by the way, some people ask me, well, when do you go to, see the venture capital guys? You're not, ready for their funding. Go early. Seek their advice, and then make sure you keep them up to date on your progress. Because by the time you get around to funding, you want to have a relationship built, and it's much tougher to start when you haven't even started that process. It's not always easy to get in to talk to them. You probably have to use a connection to get in, but I always think that's a good route to do. Don't be afraid of them, by the way. I know there's a lot of negative stories about them. I had 3 different ones in mine, and I think they're tough. I mean, they're going to demand you perform. They do change, CEOs if you're not performing, but that's the nature of the game you're in. But I do think they add a lot of value, and if you're going to get to that point where you need more than $1.5 million or $2 million, you're going to need them. So, well, I think I ran out of time. I hope it was helpful. I don't know if it was. Pierre, thank you for inviting me, and best of luck to all of you.